It's a disturbing theory. The elites using urban development policy to protect their privilege while working Americans struggle to get by. Is this the new class war? With me now, Professor at Chapman University, Executive Director for the Center for Opportunity Urbanism, and author of The Human City, Joel Kotkin.
Hi.
Joel, we talked about this, and you used that phrase, class war. I thought that was really striking and interesting. Tell us what lies behind that.
Well, what's really happening is we are now seeing a consolidation of wealth and corporate assets that we really haven't seen probably since the turn of the last century. And this group of people has enormous power, and they're particularly concentrated in the media, technology, and Wall Street. And they've got a sort of growth agenda for them. Meanwhile, the rest of the country is basically gone through 20, 30 years of income stagnation. So you want to know why there's anger? That's a pretty good explanation.
So we covered that a lot on this show, that income stagnation, but I was interested in some of your analysis which goes beyond that to things like, you know, housing and transportation and how people live. Tell us
the classic case here in California is the state of California has decided we're not going to build any more suburban houses, and we're not going to build any houses on the fringe, which is what working and middle-class people can afford. Oh, no, you have to live in a little apartment. And, you know, yeah, you probably won't have a kid, but that's okay, too. And, you know, basically you're talking about essentially warehousing people. And the long-term vision...
Warehousing people?
Warehousing people in little spaces. That's what it's all about. And at the end of the day, what you're talking about is that people... they really want people who don't have kids, don't get married, live in these little apartments, and are not independent. And the most important thing for the survival of democracy is the reduction in the number of people who are homeowners. That's been dropping. Here in California, it's dropped very dramatically, and particularly among young people.
So normally that's presented as a crisis of affordability. You just can't afford to own your own home. Is it as simple as just a financial question, or is there more to it?
Well, it's unaffordable because the policies that you have, you know, if you talk to developers, let's say you go to Texas, I spend a great deal of time. In Texas, you know, the developer wants to build 5,000 houses outside of Dallas. He builds 5,000 houses. He tries to build 5,000 houses outside of San Francisco, and he's going to be tortured for 20 years. And so
what do you mean tortured?
In other words, go through one regulatory review after another, after another, after another. And then they end up having to give away half of what would make their profits.
So you're saying that in some parts of the country, it's possible to build the kind of family homes that working people want, and you can do it in a way that they can afford because it's not so expensive to build them. But in other parts, you know, where are the parts of the country where you can't do that?
Well, the most expensive is California, particularly coastal California. Parts of New England are very tough. Parts of New York are very tough. But California sort of...
People might say there's a political overlay you could put onto this map.
Well, part of
crushing opportunity. Well, is that fair? That this is basically places run by the left?
Well, they're run by the left, and of course, what you get is a weird politics. And I consider myself, having come from a left background myself, you know, that the left should be about upward mobility. That's not what the left is about anymore. It's really about a very much a class society where there's relatively little opportunity, and you do that by regulating things like housing and creating artificial shortages.
You don't seriously think that they're doing this deliberately?
I actually think if you go and you dig deeply, when you ask Greens and some of the urbanists what are their long-term agendas, no cars, no houses, we want people to live in small spaces. I mean, this is pretty conscious. Now, climate change has now given them an application, but they've been going for these things all along. And my researcher, who is Slovakian, her father went to school in the Soviet Union. He translated and looked at some material on what they call the communist city. And boy, it sounds like a planning document today.
There's a theme emerging in this show. Later on, when we talk about freedom of speech, we're going to get... Communism is going to come back again. We're going to leave it there for now.